It looked like Art Carney and Audrey Meadows were family on TV. But something strange happened after the lovers left. They did not talk again. Not a single call, get-together, or anything else. Why? Was there a fight? Quiet fight? Or are there just two stars going on? Fans had to guess for years because no one had a clear answer. When we made The Honeymooners, things were very different. There was never enough money for us to worry about having a roof over our heads, even though we all played members of blue-collar families. After many years, bits and pieces of the truth are coming to light. The real story may not be what you think it is. How Ed Norton works his magic. Every great show has that one character who not only helps the main character but also steals the show. That was Ed Norton on The Honeymooners. Art Carney played him. Norton wasn't supposed to be the star because Jackie Gleason's loud and dangerous Ralph Cramden was meant to be the show's main character. Norton's strange charm and quirky timing, on the other hand, made people laugh out loud every time. It looked easy for Carney to do it, too. Based on paper, Ed Norton worked as a sewer worker in Brooklyn. You could call him a blue-collar guy. Norton was also silly, childish, and a little out there in the way Carney played him. He wasn't stupid, he just got sidetracked easily. He was probably staring at a faucet and trying to lead an orchestra while Ralph was getting antsy next to him. Carney never sped up. It was so long that you couldn't help but laugh that he let every beat ride. That's what people remember most about Norton. Carney was naturally funny with his body. It's not quite slapstick, but it's more delicate. He would gesture with fake grace, walk on his toes like a cartoon character, or just stare without moving. The way he moved was part of the joke. He didn't even have to say anything. An angry look could bring the house down. To be fair, Carney also gave Norton depth. In the middle of all that weirdness was a true friend. Norton was always there, gentle, and ready to help, even when Ralph yelled or spoiled the fun. The figure felt real because of that warmth. It brought him down to earth and showed that he had heart, even though he could strike a funny chord. It's hard to keep that balance. But Carney did it every week. It's funny that Gleason knew Carney was good. Even though he was the star, Gleason knew a real artist when he saw one. On screen, they were like lightning in a bottle, and everyone loved how they played off of each other like old friends. And when things went wrong, Norton often came clean. People all over the world know this from the scene where Ralph asks Norton to help him write a complaint letter. When Ralph tries to be serious, Norton starts the letter with "Dear Sir" or "Madam, please find enclosed," which is something he learned in typing class. Norton just sits there blinking and doesn't know what he did wrong when Ralph loses it. Even though the scene is very easy, Carney does a great job with it. A lot of people loved him. Fans always missed the real Norton, even when Gleason brought back the Honeymooners later on with a different group. That mix of silly and sad was so well played by Carney that no one else could do it. He also never made a lot of money off of it. He wasn't trying to be better than anyone else. He didn't make too many jokes or take over the show. He just got the flow of funny things. It was always clear to him when to stop, act, or let a scene breathe. It's not often that funny and smart at the same time. But before he became the comic book character we all loved, we couldn't get enough of him. Carney had problems and times that made him who he was. And the first few years tell a story you might not expect. Life as a child, war, injuries, and stress. Art Carney used to be a quiet kid from Mount Vernon, New York, before he became famous for playing Ed Norton. He was born in 1918 and is the sixth of 6 brothers. His Irish-American family was poor, and he grew up in the last few years of World War I. His dad made a living by selling newspapers. Things weren't great, but they weren't terrible either. Carney was never going to be the center of attention. He was actually shy. He liked to play roles and characters at home, but he didn't like to brag about it in public. He didn't start doing accents for fun until he was in high school. People in his class saw how good he was, and soon he was the one people went to for jokes and voices. He eventually got a job in radio because of that skill, but he still felt more at ease behind a microphone than in front of a crowd. Things changed, though, just as his career was getting going. Art Carney was 20 years old when he was called up to serve his country in 1943. Army during the Second World War. He was sent to Europe to fight as an infantryman. The war was very bad. A few days after D-Day, Carney served in the Battle of Normandy. During one mission, a mortar shell hit him in the leg and hurt it badly. It took someone to carry him off the battlefield because he was hit so hard. It was a pretty bad accident. His leg was broken, and doctors had to put a metal plate in it to fix it. Following that, he moved with a limp, which he tried very hard to hide during his acting career. In real life, he used a cane sometimes, but most people never noticed when he was on TV. He had figured out how to move in a way that fit the part, especially when it was funny. He went back to the stage and radio after the war. His work on the radio quickly picked up again. Because he could change his voice and tone, he was always in demand on shows like The Big Story, Gangbusters, and Casey, Crime Photographer. But when he met Jackie Gleason, they became his most important partner. The two actors worked well together right away in a sketch on the Cavalcade of Stars show in 1951. The way they worked together felt easy, and the crowd loved it. Carney's part as Ed Norton became one of the most beloved in TV history, and the sketch turned into The Honeymooners. What made The Honeymooners so popular? No one thought that The Honeymooners would be so popular when it first came out on TV in 1955. It was only on for 30 episodes in its first season, but it became one of the most popular comedies ever. It didn't have any fancy sets or effects. Just great actors, smart writing, and a group that knew how to work together. Ralph Kramden and Ed Norton were at the center of everything. Ralph was played by Jackie Gleason. He was a loud, cocky bus driver with big dreams. Ed was played by Art Carney. He was a friendly sewer worker who never seemed to fully understand what was going on but was always glad to be there. They were pure comic gold when they were together. Carney had great timing, but he never tried to be the center of attention. He knew just the right amount of time to talk and pause. That added to the humor of Gleason's reactions. Real chemistry was between Carney and Gleason, which isn't often seen. Carney stayed cool and quick on his feet, but Gleason was hard to call. It seemed like they had known each other for a long time because of how naturally they talked back and forth. That's why the show was so good. It was enough to just watch them talk or fight when there wasn't much going on in the story. Audrey Meadows played Ralph's wife Alice, and Joyce Randolph played Norton's wife Trixie. In contrast to the men's wild energy, they were sharp and straightforward. A big part of what made the show feel real was Alice's quick quips and eye rolls. The plot was simple but easy to understand, and people could relate to the characters. The Honeymooners was only on for one season, but it was never really gone. A lot of people laughed through decades of reruns. He got an Emmy for the part, and Ed Norton, the character he played, became one of TV's most memorable sidekicks. He made being weird seem cool. Fans didn't expect some things from a show that seemed so close-knit. The group left on their own after the show was over. The attention stayed on Gleason, but Carney stepped back. People started to wonder about the cast's ties over time, especially the one between Carney and Meadows. On screen, they looked so close, but what happened after the film stopped? He must not have talked to Audrey Meadows again, right? A lot of people laughed when Art Carney and Audrey Meadows played Ed Norton and Alice Kramden on The Honeymooners. You could feel how well they got along, and even though they weren't dating on the show, Americans loved seeing them as a family. Jackie Gleason was the center who could change at any time, but Carney and Meadows kept things in check and added a touch of magic. Once upon a time, fans learned that Carney and Meadows supposedly did not keep in touch after the show stopped. It made people wonder. Is it possible? After the curtain fell, did Ed Norton and Alice Kramden never talk again? Nobody in the public eye knows about a fight or any tension or arguments that happened during filming. It looks like the opposite is true. It was easy for Carney and Meadows to work together on set. Work through Gleason's style of improvisation with style and skill. Both were workers who turned up, did their jobs, and left people wanting more. They seemed to lose touch when they weren't on set or during the show. These days, there aren't many talks or pictures of Janira Aou and her husband together. Joyce Randolph, the show's fourth main cast member, would sometimes talk about how the group worked together, but Carney and Meadows' friendship was rarely brought up. But why is there no sound? Some people think it wasn't personal and that it was just the times. Back in the 1950s, TV was different, and stars didn't always become lasting friends. People either went on to the next gig or stopped being in the spotlight altogether, like Carney did for long periods of time. He kept to himself, and even though The Honeymooners was a big hit, it was only one part of his life. There's also the matter of Jackie Gleason. Everyone knew that Gleason was strict, and that he could be unreliable and bossy at times. While the show was being made, the group was close, but that may have been more because they had a lot in common than because they were friends. Outside of work, Gleason wasn't very friendly with his co-stars. It's possible that everyone else felt the difference too. Carney's personality is something else to think about. People didn't like seeing him in public, so he didn't do many gatherings or talk shows. Since he wasn't into nostalgia tours, he might not have kept in touch with Meadows often, even if he cared deeply about her. This was especially true given the many personal fights he had to fight. Because he was having problems, even though he was making everyone laugh. And those problems made him who he was outside of acting. His fight with drug abuse and stage fear. Carney may have made a lot of people laugh as Ed Norton, but behind the laughs was a man who was carrying so many big loads that not many people ever saw. Even though Carney made other people happy, he was often in fights that had nothing to do with writing or cameras. Two of the most important ones were his battle with alcoholism and his long battle with stage fright. Things didn't get out of hand with his drinking at first. It likely started out as a social event, like many things in show business. As time went on, though, and stress and loneliness grew with success, drinking became more of a crutch than a comfort. Carney was quiet, so not many people knew how hard things were for him. But people who were close to him could see it. What he did on and off the set showed it. He never caused trouble and was always in control in public, but there was sadness in the air. Carter wasn't the type of talent who liked being the center of attention. In fact, you could say that he was happy when the light wasn't shining so brightly on him. He didn't have to be the loudest or most important person in the room. That's one reason why he got along so well with Jackie Gleason. Gleason could be rude, brash, and bossy, but Carney made up for it with wit, charm, and finesse. But being the quieter half of the pair put some stress on me. Carney wasn't always happy when people noticed or praised him. And along with that pain came a certain amount of worry, especially before live shows. People who have been in the business for a while don't usually talk about stage fear. You'd think that someone with a long career and an Emmy wouldn't get nervous before a show. That is, Carney did. It hurt him all the way through. He would sometimes freeze up before going on stage, whether it was for a sitcom, a Broadway show, or just a guest spot. Friends remembered that he would get really sick before shows. He would get so nervous that he would wonder why he kept doing it. In a past interview, he said, "I loved acting, but it scared the crap out of me." In those days, most actors wore masks, so being that honest wasn't usual. That wasn't always what Carney did, though. When he was having a hard time, he would pull back, cancel plans, and spend time alone. The bottle was there to quiet them down when the nerves got too loud. He used drink to get through the years. His health, his job, and his relationships were all hurt by his drinking. His marriage got worse, and it became harder to get in touch with him physically and mentally. And that sadness was hard to carry by yourself for someone who had brought so much light to other people. He finally got caught drinking too much. He had to drop projects and even say no to parts. Through his drug use, he lost time, even years. A lot of famous people's stories stopped there, but Carney's didn't. He fought his problem and got help, and soon after, he started to get better. It was hard for him to say that he had a problem because of the way things were at the time. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, famous people didn't talk about addiction as much as they do now. But Carney still did what he had to do. He took care of his health and got back in touch with people he had pushed away. He also tried to forgive himself, which was very important. He eventually got back to the work, but this time he brought something new to it. In later roles, he gave them more weight, and you could feel the real person behind the character he played. Carney never got over being scared of being on stage, though. That could have been a good thing. He might have remembered what was at stake because of the stress. And how important it was to him to do it right. He once said that being afraid kept him honest and that he felt like he had to prove himself all over again every time he went in public. To prove himself, he went on to beat actors who were praised by critics and win a renowned award. The Oscar that made everyone happy. A lot of people were shocked when Art Carney won the Best Actor Oscar in 1975. It wasn't because he didn't deserve it, but because no one saw it coming. There were a lot of big stars in the Best Actor race that year. You put Al Pacino up for The Godfather Part 2 and Dustin Hoffman up for Lenny. Some of the big names were Albert Finney and even Jack Nicholson. After that there was Carney, who was best known for his role as Ed Norton in The Honeymooners. Chosen for a small movie called Harry and Tonto. A lot of people hadn't even seen it. Harry Coombs, a former teacher in his 70s, is kicked out of his New York apartment in the movie. He packs up his things, grabs his cat Tonto, and drives across America because he has nowhere else to go. That's it. There were no explosions, courtroom action, or anything else that could have been exciting. Something about the man made me think about what life is like when everything I know is gone. That being said, Carney brought something special to the part. He wasn't trying to be cool or hip, and he didn't yell or brag. That was all he was. Kind, honest, sad, and funny all at the same time. You didn't remember that you were watching a star. You thought this man with the cat and the bag was trying to get back in touch with his kids. Make peace with the past and give the time he had left new meaning. It hurt people. Most people thought that Pacino or Nicholson would win the Oscar when it came around. Carney wasn't even running for office. He was 55 years old at the time, but in the movie, he was made to look almost 20 years older. Carney really didn't think he would win. He was shocked himself. The crowd was just as shocked when his name was called, and they stood up to cheer. It wasn't just Harry and Tonto who won. Another type of performance that didn't depend on long statements or a lot of drama won. Carney showed that sensitivity, honesty, and heart could be just as powerful as force. And for people who only knew him as the funny sewer worker from Brooklyn, it was a big surprise. It showed that Carney could do many things. He's always had. He just hadn't had enough parts that let him show it. In Hollywood, that Oscar changed how people saw him, even though Carney never sought fame. He didn't use it to start a big second act. As usual, he was picky, quiet, and mostly out of the public eye. Family. To love and be saved. Everyone would have thought that Carney's life was a lot less messy and difficult when he wasn't on TV. His jokes and smiles were masks for problems he was having with family, friends, and even himself. He had a lot of love and second chances, though. He was married 3 times to 2 different women, but his connection with Jean Myers, his first and third wife, is the one that really stands out. In 1940, they got married for the first time. They had 3 children together, a daughter named Eileen, 2 sons named Brian and Paul, and a daughter named Brian. They had good and bad times together, just like many couples do. They had a hard time with their marriage because of Carney's acting job and drug and alcohol problems. When things got tough, they split up in 1965. Wasn't just any ex, even after they broke up. He had loved her a lot, and it was clear that they still had feelings for each other. When Carney and Jean got back together and married again in 1980, it shocked everyone. That's 15 years between them. It's not often that you hear about a pair who breaks up but later gets back together. It wasn't a big deal or flashy that they got married again. It was easy and made me feel like I could start over. Carney was no longer in the bright lights of Hollywood at that point. He wasn't interested in fame or big parts anymore. His only wish was for peace, which Jean gave him. They lived together in Connecticut, away from all the noise, so he could be himself without feeling like he had to hide something. For both of them, this second chance was a way to make things right. It proved that people could forgive and make things better even after years of hurt and mistakes. More than likely, most people had never seen this part of Carney because they only knew him as an actor or as a star. He didn't always get along with his kids either. Carney was always working hard and busy, which made it hard for him to be a good dad sometimes. Brain. Paul and Eileen have talked about how hard it was that their dad wasn't always there for them in life. But they also say he loved them very much and always tried to make things right. Carney cared about his family no matter what. It kept him steady in a world that could be loud and strange. But his son Brian also worked in show business as a writer and director, though he didn't become famous like his dad. It was hard for Carney to keep his personal life separate from his struggles with alcohol and worry. He had these problems for a long time, which made it hard for him to connect with other people. He was very funny, but he was in a lot of pain off stage. During his work, he had trouble with stage fright and nerves, which made him distant from family and friends at times. An important part of Carney's story is that he never gave up on love and family, no matter what. He found Jean again and they started a family without the cameras around. That's also a kind of win, even though most people didn't hear or see it. The years when you took a full break. Carney quietly disappeared into a shell he made for himself after decades in the public eye. After the mid-1980s, he did less and less work. A small part here, a TV movie there. After that, he quit appearing on screen altogether. One day. Not many people complained. But for people who had grown up watching him, it was strange that someone who used to make so many people laugh could just disappear. Without a doubt, some of it was planned. Carney had never seemed completely at ease in public. He didn't talk about his personal life, even when he was very famous. He wasn't after news stories. He didn't go to all of the parties in Hollywood. He worked and then went home. He decided to stay home for good when the work failed to make him feel like it was worth it. From what everyone says, he spent most of his later years staying out of public life. He didn't do interviews and didn't show up very often. Carney would say something easy like he didn't need it anymore when asked why he didn't act more. Not because he was angry, but because he was happy that he had done everything he could and it was time to stop. It's interesting that Carney could have made money. He could have written an autobiography, gone on talk shows, or even worked in one more well-paid movie. He didn't, though. More than anything else, that choice seemed to show who he really was. Not someone looking for fame or a legacy, but just a man who was happy to live quietly after years of making a lot of noise. That is both admirable and a little sad, though, because the industry never really gave him the send-off he earned, even though he may have been at peace. There wasn't a big award or honor for their lifetime of work. He slowly disappeared, as if no one knew what to do with someone who didn't want to be praised. People who knew him well say that his withdrawal wasn't caused by anger or sorrow. It was mostly to keep the peace after years of noise. He had spent a lot of his work fighting personal demons like drinking, anxiety, and stage fright. He was tense all the time, even when there were no cameras around. He may have finally found some peace after taking a break. Health is another issue. Carney was said to have had a lot of health problems as he got older, but he never talked about them in public. He smoked for a long time and had problems from World War II that he had to deal with. It is not unreasonable to think that his health played a part in his choice to step back. The last few years and death. People never really forgot about Art Carney, even after he stopped being in the news. The Honeymooners kept coming back on TV, and for many, it was still the most famous show from a certain era of TV. People never forgot about Carney, even though he didn't try to be famous or stay in the public eye. He was always Ed Norton to a lot of people. The adorable and funny friend who made the show unforgettable. Carney lived a quiet life in Westbrook, Connecticut, in his later years. He could enjoy the easy things in life there, where it was quiet and close to the ocean. His third wife, Jean, lived with him, and they stayed out of sight. There were no spy cameras or gossip magazines near their house. Simple, quiet days spent away from all the noise. In the 1990s, Carney didn't go to many public events, but people could still see him. He sometimes showed up to help causes that were important to him or to see old friends. He played a small part in the 1994 movie Last Action Hero. It wasn't a big deal, but it made people think of how much love he could give with a look or a few words. But by the early 2000s, Art Carney wasn't seen by many people. He died peacefully in his sleep on November 9, 2003, at the age of 85. This news shocked many of his friends. Some people had no idea he was still living. It was normal for him to die at a care home in Chester, Connecticut. To say goodbye, there wasn't a big event or a Hollywood homage. On the TV instead, there were a few death notices, some comments from friends, and old episodes of The Honeymooners. Jackie Gleason, who played Ralph Cramden, had died in 1987, many years before the movie came out. In the show, Audrey Meadows played Alice Cramden. She died in 1996. He was a big part of TV history, and his death seemed to cap it off. Later, Joyce Randolph, the last key cast member from the show still alive, talked about how nice Carney was and how much she liked working with him. She also said that he was a joy to work with. What do you think about the subject? Did Carney really not want to talk to Audrey Meadows after the vacation was over? Was it a personal fight, or is that just how friendships work in show business? Why do you think they were apart for so long? What did happen behind the scenes? Answers should be left in the box below. Please remember to like the movie and follow the channel. If you liked this video, please click on the next one that comes up on your screen.